Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Jell here on a Thursday.
Live on a Thursday,
kinda. We're recording on Monday here, but coming at you on Thursday. We'll be back on Monday for live, so make sure you subscribe to YouTube so that way you know when the episode goes live so you can ask us questions. Speaking of questions, Jell, you've got our question of the day today, so I will go ahead and kick it over to you.
So we are recording live on 4th of July, to be totally transparent here. Speaking of 4th of July, though, one of the best traditions in American, do we want to call it sports, is the Nathan's hot dog eating contest live on Coney Island in New York. Joey Chestnut has won the hot dog eating contest. Now results are in. Spoiler alert, for his 16th straight season or 16th straight year. I guess is it a season? I don't know. 16th straight year winning the hot dog eating contest. His over under on this was to finish 76 and a half hot dogs. Oh. He finished with 63. Guy's weak now, but he did come out on crutches. I don't know if
and
that has anything to do with it.
There was also some spectator that went up and held up a sign, and Joey Chestnut also tackled them because they weren't supposed to be on there. Somebody that was protesting something. So that
I didn't see that
on stage. Yes.
Was it PETA?
Protesting. I think it was more with the
unknown animal parts.
Supreme Court stuff that's been going on.
That makes more sense.
Is more what it was, but
I didn't know about that. I didn't see that.
So that's why
Joey Chestnut,
Barstool came out and gave money back to people for anybody that bet the over or anything on the hot dogs due to this happening, because he was stopped for a little bit and I think thrown off of his rhythm, but still ate a lot of hot dogs.
Still 63 over 12 minutes. Not too shabby. So, oh God, that's disgusting. I can't imagine. Joey Chestnut, ultimate competitive eater. If you were to, this is my question of the day. If you were to enter an eating contest, not in terms of weight of food, like over poorly worded. Let's start over. If you had 12 minutes, as they do in this hot dog eating contest, to eat as many or as much of some food substance as you could, what would you go with and why would you win?
I don't think I would win because I think there's somebody out there that could probably eat more than me, but I think I would have to go ice cream. I can put down some ice cream. So
brain freeze.
My wife,
you can beat the brain freeze.
That. Yeah, usually. Although, that would be tough because usually I like my ice cream sitting out on the counter for like a minute or two, so that way the spoon goes into it nice. Because I usually just eat it right out of the carton. I'm the savage like that. So. But yeah, I could eat a lot of ice cream. Otherwise, maybe like some Skittles. But either way, I'm getting just a nasty stomach ache after this, and it's gonna be bad.
I'm wondering. I think Marshawn Lynch might he's gonna have something to say about that Skittles competition.
Yeah, and Skittles would be tough too because I can't stand the people that just open up a bag of Skittles and just start dumping them in their mouth and don't eat them one by one. I'm always one that eats them like one by one. So that would also be a little different, but I would have to just go to town on that. So see,
the thing with Skittles, you'd have to have extreme jaw strength.
Yeah,
because if you're pouring in a ton of Skittles, it's like, I mean, think about how hard that is to chew and like even opening up your mouth, how sticky it is.
Yeah.
Do you have that jaw strength?
No, probably not. So I guess I'll go with ice cream.
Go with ice cream, beat the brain freeze. Mental test with the brain freeze.
Yes.
I'm going to go chicken wings.
Okay.
I think I could. Now there are some people out there that can literally just like, I don't know how they do it, but like with flats, they can just like hit the right part on that bone and right part on like the top of the wing, and the bones come just blasting out the back, and then they can rip off the meat and shove it in their mouth. I don't know how to do that, but I think I could go to town on some wings. Like probably go no sauce. I'd probably have to go dry rub if I was trying to like speed eat, I guess. Sauce
But
could
the
be a little
sauce help it
messy.
slide down though.
Yeah, you got. Oh, that's a good point. That may
I could
help.
just imagine some nice dry rub, and you just inhale some of that dry rub and just start coughing for 2 minutes and just ruin it.
Like, oh, game over. Contest is over. Yeah, but the thing with the sauce is like it could get messy. The wing could be slipping all over the place if you have buffalo or something. Dry rub, maybe a dry rub, but the seasoning would have to be like intact, I guess. That's probably the way that I would go. But I think I could probably eat a pretty decent amount of wings pretty quickly, and just, it'd be fun to kind of throw the bones around too, which would be throw bones at your opponents and stuff.
Maybe if I have a long segment I want to talk about at some point, Joe, we can have a how many wings can Gel finish before Josh gets done talking segment. And we can see how many
that's a good time. If you've got like an opening rant, maybe that's what we do.
Well, we'll have to wait for football season and the Bears to start playing, and then we'll have a few rants. So although I don't have Matt Nagy to blame anymore.
Do the Bears play the Bills at all this season? That would be perfect. Because I could go buffalo wings while you're ranting about Bears.
I don't think we do. I can't remember what division the NFC has this year.
December 24th, Christmas Eve.
Okay. Christmas
Bills
Eve.
At Bears at noon.
Okay, next week.
Mark it down on the calendars, fellas. All you listeners, mark it down. You're gonna have to find us on YouTube. And for that event alone, find us on YouTube, search Dead Arm Sports. It should be the first thing that pops up. You'll find our channel. Make sure to hit subscribe and hit that alerts button, that nice bell.
Ding.
and you'll see a little eating contest by your boy Joe. I'll be sure to make a full batch and see how many I can knock out.
Sounds good. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Like Jel said, check us out on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell, and we will let you know when we're recording. You'll get a notification, so that way you can jump on when we're live, answer any questions that you have. Gel can be found at DAS-Gel. That's at DASJEL. It can be found at DAS-JPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Send us any questions, comments, concerns you have about the show via DM, and we'll hit you back. Or else, if you think it's a good question, bring up some discussion, we will answer it live on the next podcast. Subscribe, rate, and view the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot, get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail.
And make sure to whatever social media platform you want to hit us up on. Again, it's at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter and IG, or on Facebook. Just search Dead Arm Sports. We're in the off season. We want questions. We want topic ideas. We want to talk about whatever you guys want to hear us talk about. So any ideas, any questions that you listeners have, we're inviting anything and everything. So make sure, again, socials at Dead Arm Sports.
Going to kick off the show with some MLB here before we get into the AFC East fantasy preview. And Juan Soto was supposedly offered a 13-year, $425 million offer from the Nationals. They bumped that up from, 10 for $350, 10 for $325 earlier.
It was,
Either way, it was a substantial increase from this last
huge increase.
Yes. And yeah, what are your thoughts there? I mean, that's huge. And obviously Juan Soto is probably looking to test.
It was his original offer, same time span, 13 years.
Okay.
350. So he got a $75 million increase with this next offer.
Yeah. Well, obviously he's the best player on the Nationals. They want to get him locked down as the future face of their organization. So I don't blame them for this offer to him, but it's looking like he wants to end up testing out free agency. And if he does end up hitting free agency, and this is the offer that he turned down from the Nationals, what do you see that money looking like?
I mean, I say risk it for the biscuit and try to get the first ever fit $500 million deal in American sports. I say go for it. If you can get that the current offer is 13 years for 425. That's 32.7 million a year. Insane amount of money to turn down for 13 years going forward. But I'm not saying 13 years, 500, but if you could go 15 years and get to that $500 million mark, that's 33.3 million a year. That would take him basically till the end of his career. And he gets the first $500 million contract in American sports, maybe in all of sports globally. I say risk it for the biscuit, buddy, because somebody's going to be out there, I think, willing to make a deal like that. I mean, you stay in the Northeast and you got the Yankees, the Bo Sox that are probably ready to spend. Dodgers always a wild card. They could the Dodgers, they're always willing to spend money. They're why not pay for, they were able to figure out a way to get Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman. Will Smith is their catcher is probably due for a contract extension. He may be the best hitting catcher in all of baseball right now. Will Smith is hitting in the 3 spot for the Dodgers.
Fresh Prince.
the slapper. Hardly know her. Oh. Not great. I'll take that one back. Woof. Will Smith, the baseball player, he's the 3 hitter, and he's making diddly squat right now. Look at all those other hitters, and you got him. So he's due a deal, but the Dodgers seem to have endless money. So you got the Dodgers that are going to be in play. The Padres have been willing to spend money lately. You may have the wild card of the Chicago Cubs coming in if they're ready to, that ownership is ready to break the bank finally again. They haven't been willing to. Probably, yeah. But is it the Ricketts still?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not willing to spend any money. But
unless it's a Premier League team.
True. But no, I say risk it for the biscuit. Try to get that $500 million contract because, why not? Test out free agency. We really haven't seen this, a player hit of his stature as young as he is hit free agency ever. And I'd love to see if he does and see kind of what people are willing to, or what teams, organizations are willing to pay.
No, it'll be interesting because, like you said, if he's already getting this offered right now, it's obviously going to go up over that. And I don't necessarily blame him. I mean, the Nationals, they had a nice run for a while, but they kind of shot their shot with it. They ended up getting a World Series out of it and then couldn't really keep anybody else around. Bryce Harper leaving a year before they win the World Series. Scherzer ends up moving on. Who's the guy that went over to the Angels? I'm blanking on.
Anthony Rendon.
Yeah, which he's
out for the season.
Good.
He's been
and he's suspended to start the next season.
Angels signing that has just been an absolute train wreck.
Yes, shocker.
Welcome to the only one that's actually worked out is Shohei, who's. By the way, have you kept up with this Shohei? What he's been doing lately? I mean, his ERA is he had back-to-back days where he had a 8 RBI game. The next day, he went 7 scoreless. This is insane what he's doing. We've literally never seen a player like this, but carry on with what you were saying.
No, I was just going to say, I almost would have liked Juan Soto to have entertained this offer and maybe throw in a opt-out after year 3-4 where you could start making bank right now, see if the Nationals end up turning it around, can get into playoff contention, just pretty much tell them like, hey, you've got this amount of time to get us back into being a winning organization again. Otherwise, you know what, I'm going to opt out, and still in his prime could still get a huge contract. And at that point in time, who knows what those huge contracts are looking like? I mean, every year the contracts just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, but obviously he doesn't foresee the Nationals being competitive down the road, or he just wants even more money and knows he can probably get more money from some of these other organizations. And like you said, those big market teams, they like to spend money. So there's no shortage there on that at all. So,
yeah, I want to see it just for my own entertainment purposes, see him test free agency and see what's out there, see who's willing to pony up. And there's going to be teams. But
Speaking of free agency, Joe, Freddie Freeman ended up canning his agency after kind of a, I guess you'd say, a botched negotiation where
according to reports,
he had, what did they give the Braves a deadline, but then never really said anything more to them. They didn't accept the offer that the Braves had put on the table. And apparently Freddie said he wasn't ever even made aware of this. And then all of a sudden they ended up trading for Matt Olson from the A's. And obviously at that point in time, Freddie Freeman's no longer coming back to the Braves. So Freddie was very emotional when the Dodgers ended up returning to Atlanta. You could see him physically emotional multiple times throughout the series and everything. It looked like he wanted to stay a Brave, but just didn't end up happening. And after the series, ends up canning his agency.
You have to imagine that he must have talked to some executives on the Braves and said, how did this happen? Why? Like, how did this not all come together? I wanted to stay. You have to imagine that conversation was had, and they probably said, look, our last offer was whatever it was. And your agent said that you weren't interested. So we had to move on. And he said, Freddie goes, what was that? What was that last deal again? Because apparently, according to reports, he never got that final offer from Atlanta. His agent never brought that final offer from Atlanta to him. Hell yeah, I'm firing my agent.
Right.
If he's doing, if that agency is pulling that kind of stuff. I just sit here and I wonder, why does his agent want him to play in LA so badly? I mean, thinking there's other opportunities for him to make money. Maybe his agent gets now in ties with the Dodgers organization, and knowing that there's other Dodgers that are going to become free agents, and you make your way into the organization with Freddie Freeman, and eventually you expand your own business interests. So that's the cynical side of me saying that that's probably what that agent did, or that agency did, is if that report is true, that's some real shady shit that went down. And
big time.
I guess also the other thing too is, if you're Freddie, you're tied in with the Braves organization. If you're Freddie Freeman, you've been there for your entire career up until this season.
Won a World Series.
Exactly. Do you, at some point, don't you take it into your own hands? And if you have any inkling that your agency is not doing their best to get you, if you're maybe suspicious, like, why are they pushing the Dodgers so much? Why do they really want me to get to LA? You've got contacts with every executive within that organization. Don't you shoot him a text and say, what is it going to take to get this done? What's your best offer? I don't know. Maybe Freddie really just wanted to be hands off in this. But as you mentioned, you saw the emotion of him returning to Atlanta. It's pretty damn obvious that he wanted to stay in Atlanta and probably regrets moving off of, or, joining the Dodgers. Kershaw, after the series, said basically, I hope that Freddie doesn't look at us as a second fiddle team, as a backup plan, because we've got the best. We've got one of the best teams in the league. We've got everything that we need to win a World Series. So hopefully he doesn't look at us as a backup plan, second fiddle to the Braves, now that he's on our team. So you can almost feel it within the Dodgers organization that they are questioning if Freddie wants to be there. I don't know. His agent really screwed him, I think. And you after seeing that emotion, you almost have to feel bad for Freeman.
Yeah, no, 100% on that. But at the same time too, like you had said, that maybe he just did really want a hands-off approach with his free agency and just told his agent, like, hey, I want to come back to the Braves, but do what you got to do here and let's do whatever. But if you really, really want to go back to a team, you're probably got to have some sort of contact with the GM or somebody and just be like, hey, I want to be a Brave. You guys want me back. What's it going to take? What's going to happen here? But maybe there was a lot of miscommunication during that lockout period too. We kind of forget about the season starting off in that lockout, and he was one of the pieces that.
That's a really good
after
point.
that.
I didn't even think of that. That's nice.
Yeah, I honestly it just popped up or whatever in my head. I was like, oh yeah, there's a lockout this year, but maybe that's what happened. Maybe there's just really miscommunication between Freddie and his agency during that lockout period, and his agent was just like, all right, well, we're going to LA. He literally
couldn't talk to
anybody in the organization.
Players Association can't make any players cannot make any contact with the actual team.
Yeah, but even so, like once that lockout period was done, you'd think you would have just been like to your agent, hey, I want to be a Brave. I don't really care if somebody else is coming in with a huge deal. Just make this happen and let's get this done. And that's the end of it. If somebody really wants to stay on the team that they're currently on, they're the face of the franchise, there's no way a deal can't get done. I mean, you'll end up meeting in the middle one way or another. Somebody will have to concede a little bit more than they want to, and it'll get done and they'll be back there. But obviously this wasn't the case for Freddie, and now he's looking for a new agent.
And that's what makes me think that his agent, or, you know, the Excel agency just really wanted to get in within that Dodgers organization.
Yeah.
And that's really shitty. That's really tough to I mean, you're ruining. I mean, I'm not saying you're ruining his career, but Freddie Freeman is one of the biggest stars in baseball, and you're selfishly, again, if the reports are true, this agency is selfishly putting themselves ahead of their client, and that's the opposite of what an agency wants to do. And they may have, by taking this gamble, very, very possibly shot themselves in the foot of ever landing another a high-end player ever again from joining their agency. Because if you're, let's say you're Juan Soto and you want to try to get that $500 million contract, how could you possibly trust this agency to work in your best interest? That's what an agent is supposed to do, work in their client's best interest. If the reports are true, this agent was clearly just looking out for themselves, and that's what you can't have in an agent.
No, not at all. So I don't blame Freddie if that's the case for getting rid of his agency, because they obviously did not represent him how he should have been represented. So yeah, not
tough
great.
luck.
Yeah,
try again next time in 2028 when you're 38 years old, I guess.
Right.
That's the shitty part too, is it's not like he's 25 and he's got one big deal to make. He's got one big deal left. When this deal is up in 2028, he's 38 years old. He's got maybe a couple 1, 2, 3, maybe a couple 1-year deals, maybe a 2-year deal, maybe a Nelson Cruz type of future where Nelson Cruz is at now, getting 1-year deal after 1-year deal after 1-year deal. 38 years old. Yeah, he can slug now, but that's a ways off. And 38 is there's a tipping point in baseball.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, it'll help now that the DH is in the National League a bit, but even so, you're going to see a huge slide in production. And yeah, he's probably maybe an invite to a training camp or something at that point in time, unless he hasn't really dropped off a ton. But historically, after 34, 35, you really start to see that decline.
Big time.
It's tough.
Yeah.
All right, Jill, you ready for some football?
Are you ready for some football? For Monday Night Party! Hank Williams.
Oh, yeah. All right.
How would that work in karaoke? You think that would be a hit?
I could either see that going very well or very poorly, and people just being like,
off the stage.
Get the hell off the stage.
One or the other.
Yes.
Maybe I'll try that next time I go out.
Yes. All right. We are talking anything and everything AFC East today. So this is your fantasy football preview, and we're just going to kind of go through, talk about some guys that we're looking forward to for this upcoming season, guys that we like for fantasy, and then we'll jump into some players that we don't like, and we'll give our reasons why for that. I don't know how you necessarily want to kick this off, Joe. If we just want to go team by team and say who we like, who we don't like, and
let's just go team by team. And Bills, obviously, let's start with the Bills, given that they won the division last year. But right now, Vegas odds to be they're the AFC favorites to make the Super Bowl. Jim Kelly knows all about making the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, doesn't know about winning it with the same franchise. But yeah, let's kick it off with the Bills.
Sounds good. I'll go through. Obviously, Josh Allen. He's probably my top quarterback off of the board, or at least in contention for the top.
Your boy won that debate. I can never stop reminding you of this Josh Allen Kyler Murray debate that we had.
Well, it's looking extremely dumb with Mr. Prima Donna over there in Phoenix. So yeah, not a question anymore. But no, again, Josh Allen. Get rushing touchdowns from him, passing touchdowns. Buffalo's offense looks awesome. We'll see what the transition looks like without Brian Dable being there calling plays, but should be a pretty seamless transition there. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, even Dawson Knox came on at times last year outside of his injury. So I really, really like all of those guys this year for fantasy purposes. And as far as dislikes, guys, I'm staying away from on Buffalo, not a ton, but I'm out on the Buffalo Bills backfield at this point in time. I can't trust any of those guys.
Yeah, I speaking of that backfield, last year, basically the first third of the year, so it was kind of Devin Singletary's. I wrote down Montgomery. Damn it. I got it right during the show. Thanks. I'm pointing out my own freaking shitty notes. Devin Singletary pretty much commanded that backfield for the first third of the year. Zach Moss was in command the middle third of the year, and then Singletary took it over again for the final third of the year. Something along those lines. I ain't no math magician here, and I didn't break it down exactly like that. But so I did see, though, that Buffalo Bills staff is extremely confident in Singletary being the number one guy going forward all season. Do you see that being the case, or could you see, I guess, how does James Cook factor in this?
Yeah, Devin Singletary did do pretty well down the stretch last year and even in the playoffs a little bit. So he kind of did what we all thought he would do when he came into the league.
They are who we thought they were.
Yes. James Cook, I could see maybe taking over kind of that Zach Moss, where he's more in on third downs, goal line work, and have Singletary in between the 20s. He's good catching passes out of the backfield, as well as James Cook is too. So it just, again, we say this every single year with Josh Allen. It's his run game inside the 10s that scares me the most, I think, with the running backs. Running backs in fantasy football, you need touchdowns, and they just don't get them a lot. It's usually Josh Allen punching it in on the goal line, which is unfortunate because Devin Singletary, if he were to get some of the goal line work and get more opportunities, he'd probably, being on a really solid offense like this, be able to crack the top 15. But it's so hard when Josh Allen gets so many rushing touchdowns every year.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, if you're from 2021, Josh Allen had a number of rushing touchdowns. Obviously, you're taking away from the backfield there immediately. But ultimately, to me, what kind of a threat would you say that do you see James Cook factoring in as a Zach Moss type of threat, where Singletary, was
Zach Moss ever a threat?
If you drafted Singletary, yeah, because Moss took over the middle part of the year for Singletary as the top Bills back. So could you see that as a possibility for James Cook? And going back to Josh Allen, he had 6 rushing touchdowns last year. You put those 6 touchdowns into Devin Singletary, and you're looking at an RB1 potentially. Yeah. Do you think? Dable's gone. Josh Allen's got this massive money. I can't imagine they're going to run him as much as they did last year. So Okay, so I guess my ultimate question is, where are you willing to take Singletary, both in redraft and dynasty? Are you interested in him? Are you more interested in him I would imagine you're more interested in him in redraft than dynasty, but are you willing to put Singletary, lock him in as a comfortable RB2?
I would say more flex play until I see more consistency out of him. Again, it just scares me because they have such a committee and they have the last few years where, again, at times Devin Singletary's looked awesome, but they just haven't given him the work. And they have put Zach Moss in, who never really was relevant when he was on the field other than taking snaps away from Devin Singletary.
Mike Tolbert.
James Cook coming in, and we'll see what ends up happening there. But I think, and again, like you said, with Josh Allen getting that big contract, you would think that they would put the ball in the running back's hands more along the goal line, but he's been so successful getting the ball into the end zone. And that's what teams want, is getting the ball into the end zone. That's the goal of football. So if Josh Allen's really good at doing that, then I think he's going to continue to do that. And it's going to eat into the running backs' productivity and their potential.
So, let's talk dynasty then. James Cook. Let's talk just rookie backs. Breece Hall, James Cook, Kenneth Walker. Is that, do you, not in that specific order, but are those your top three running backs just right off the top of your head in terms of rookie running backs coming in? Or do you have another one another back that you want to throw in there into the mix of top rookie running backs? James Cook was a second round pick, as was Walker, was Breece.
Yeah, I think Breece is far and away, and we'll talk about him in a little bit here, but I think he's far and away the best running back, at least for what he could possibly do this year. He's got a very clear path to winning that starting role. It sounds like out of Seattle, Rashad Penny's getting a lot of good positive vibes out there. So it sounds like he's going to be the starter there on day one. And obviously he's had an injury history there, but Kenneth Walker should eat into the snaps. And Rashad Penny was only signed for a 1-year deal. They brought him back for 1 year. So I think after this year, for sure, Kenneth Walker will be there. And hopefully they
I forgot it's
Ken Walker. My bad. Yeah. I'm just going to call him Kenny. Kenny! But the only other running back I think I would throw into the mix, we talked about him, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, is Dameon Pierce down in Houston, just because if he is the starter there, could be relatively pretty relevant. So going into your redraft, keep an eye on that training camp battle there and see if Dameon Pierce is getting the bulk of the work right with the starters and everything like that. He might be somebody that could quietly be somebody that you could plug into that RB2 or a flex spot for you every week. But yeah, James Cook could potentially be awesome. Like you said, he was a round 2 running back, so you like that, but I want to see it from Buffalo's offensive system that they get their running backs involved, especially around the goal line, before I really want to take a chance on him. If he slipped down into the draft, especially like a James Cook, if it was, I don't know, in the double-digit rounds, it'd be a lot more interesting to me. But I think he's getting bumped up a little bit more just because he's Dalvin's brother, but he's not even close to Dalvin's level.
No, he's never going to be Dalvin Cook. No chance. I can't see that coming. He never was able to dominate the Georgia running back room. So obviously you had Zamir White there, who was awesome for the Bulldogs. But I guess you have to wonder, how does Ken Dorsey, now him moving, Miami quarterback legend Ken Dorsey.
Oh yeah.
Wonder how he if he tailors that offense more towards the running game, if he's, assuming he's doing the play calling, given that Sean McDermott is a defensive coach, I'd imagine Ken Dorsey's going to be doing the play calling, see if he takes the ball off of Josh Allen's hands a little bit and preserves a little bit of his legs. I want to move over to the pass catching positions between Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Dawson Knox. Stephon Diggs is 28. He just signed a 4-year deal for $96 million. Good for him, man. I'll take that. Nearly $100 million man. Too bad he didn't get that extra $4 million and get to 100 like AJ Green or AJ Brown did.
AJ Green, woof.
Do not pay AJ Green $100 million right now, please.
No.
But I guess, so he's a lock. You know what you're getting out of Diggs. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. Gabe Davis, though, we've seen some really good stuff out of him. He's just been inconsistent. We saw a 3-touchdown playoff game with Gabe Davis, so we see the potential that he has. Do you see what kind of a role do you see him jumping into? Do you see him as a reliable flex option, or would you'd obviously rather have him be on the bench, but if he's sitting there and he's maybe your second flex, would you feel comfortable as Gabe Davis being in there as a week-to-week starter?
Not right off the bat, but if you see him very involved right away in game one, I think I'd be comfortable putting him into that flex spot just because, like you had said, Buffalo's going to put up a ton of points this year. They're one of the premier offenses in the league. So I like having pieces of a premier offense, and Gabe Davis is somebody that could definitely win you a week. We saw it in the playoffs with his 3-touchdown game and could potentially do that during the regular season. You've got before last year, Emmanuel Sanders was there in front of him and just never really got worked into a consistent role where he should start the season off as their wide receiver 2 lined opposite Diggs. You got Jamison Crowder in the mix this year too, so you can put him in the slot, and Gabe Davis should be pretty relevant, but again, it's going to be interesting. I don't know that I necessarily feel comfortable putting him into that flex spot week 1, but I think as the season goes on, you're going to be more comfortable with him in that flex spot, and maybe even crack your wide receiver 2 area of your lineup too.
Especially bye weeks, I think he's an absolute potential play.
Yeah.
For
100%.
At least flex, if not even, like you said, wide receiver 2. So let me jump over to Dawson Knox then, because I agree with everything you said about Gabe Davis. Let me jump over to Dawson Knox, that tight end position. He broke out last year before he got injured. Yeah. He was a very nice positive surprise at that tight end position. But do you think that he could be a one-hit wonder, or do you think that he can continue that success given now you've got the presence of James Cook as a receiving back and the continuing evolution of Gabe Davis, now also the presence, like you said, of Jamison Crowder? Do you put Dawson Knox down a tier within that tight end room, or do you think that he can continue because he was a monster, especially in the red zone?
Yeah, I think he can continue. I don't think he'll ever be a top 3, top 5 tight end, but I think he slots in nicely to that tight end 5 through 10 spot or tight end 6 through 10 spot. And I mean, that's not ever going to win you weeks, and it's kind of a crapshoot if it's not a top 3 tight end. But again, I like having pieces on offenses that put up a ton of points because it gives you more opportunity to have your player find the end zone. And he's never going to be one of those guys that's winning you weeks if he doesn't find the end zone. But I don't know. I could see him having 6, 7 touchdowns again this year, which would be pretty solid for him. So that.
Let me throw then a question. How do you rank these 3 players? It's a triple D question. Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, Dawson Knox.
Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, Dallas Goedert. We'll get into Dallas Goedert next week on Monday, but spoiler alert, he's somebody that Dalton. I'm in dislike. So
yeah, I think right now I fall in that same ranking. Go Dalton Schultz. He's got nice rapport with Dak, but then Dawson Knox right after him. I'm totally comfortable with that.
Sounds good. All right. We'll move over to the Jets here, and got a couple of guys, which obviously the past hasn't been something that would come out of my mouth. A couple of guys that I like on the Jets, but going into this year, I like Breece Hall. It might not be week 1 or week 2, but I think he's going to be the one getting the bulk of the carries down the stretch, and somebody that I'm comfortable taking him where he's currently going in drafts. I'll get into him in a little bit later on, but also like Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson combo too. I think they're going to do wonders for Zach Wilson on the outside. Still think Zach Wilson's got a lot left to learn. So I'm not in on him this year. He does fall in my dislike category along with Corey Davis. I'm completely out on Corey Davis,
I'm
man.
done. I'm done with his
I'm
ass.
done. So especially with
move
them
on.
getting Garrett Wilson this year, you're going to see Corey Davis phased out of that offense. So those are the three guys I like: Breece Hall, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson. Do you fall into that category? Do one of those guys not as in on? Where do you sit?
Those are the three guys that I like. My question to you then, let's go to that wide receiver room. Who do you like more? Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson? We're talking, let's talk redraft. I would say dynasty, you'd take Garrett Wilson over Elijah Moore, but redraft this year, where do you fall between Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson? We had this debate during our mock draft where we had the option to take both. I was siding pretty hard on Elijah Moore. I think you were more on the fence. So I want to kind of hear your thoughts here.
Yeah. Elijah Mitchell had some solid games last year. It took him a little bit to get going, had that injury during training camp. So it kind of gave him a little bit of a slow start to the season, but ended up having a pretty solid year and built some rapport with Zach Wilson. Had a couple of breakout games, though. I think the game that's coming to my mind is he had a breakout game against the Colts. And that was the week that I can't even remember what the quarterback's name was, but Zach Wilson was out.
That would have been, it was the Cowboys, like third stringer. All right, you keep going.
Yeah, I'll keep going. Sounds good. But so that's the only thing. Mike White. That's right. Yep. Mike
White. If I could be Mike White.
But so I guess I would lean Elijah Mitchell right now, just because we've seen him do it in the NFL. We know he's capable of having decent weeks, and we haven't seen that out of Garrett Wilson yet. Granted, Garrett Wilson should be solid. I mean, he has all of the tools to be very successful in the NFL. And I think, like you said, if it was dynasty, I think no question I'm going Garrett Wilson, but in redraft, I'd probably lean Elijah Moore.
I'm leaning heavily Elijah Moore. I really liked what I saw out of him last year. I mean, he off to a pretty slow start, but up until Halloween night against Cincinnati, that was their first win of the season, was against Cincinnati. 6 receptions, had a 24-yard reception. That was kind of like when he started taking off. The following week against the Colts, 7 receptions, 2 touchdowns, and from there on from that point in the first weekend, that first Thursday night of November through the rest of the week, he scored at least 1 touchdown for the 5 weeks to finish off the season. That's pretty baller. So you've got great momentum with that Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, that combo, that rapport. So I do really like Elijah Moore going into this season, especially for redraft. For me, I love, of course, you love the potential that Garrett Wilson can bring to the table, but unless you see the Jamar Chase, the Justin Jefferson, real hardcore breakouts, rookies aren't always destined for greatness in their first year. Of course, there's exceptions like the 2 guys that I just mentioned, but Elijah Moore, I feel like I know what I'm getting going into next season. That's why I'm higher on him in redraft over Garrett Wilson, but I think Garrett Wilson ultimately is the more dynamic player. It just depends how quickly are him and his long lost cousin Zach going to how quickly are they gonna
the Wilson to Wilson combo?
Yeah, how long Wilson squared? When is that gonna marry up?
Yeah. One guy I do want to just kind of get your thoughts on. I know obviously you were very high on him going into last season, but with Breece Hall coming in, what just out completely on Michael Carter, or what do you see, at least as far as expectations for him this year? Obviously, dynasty is not looking good, but
handcuff. That's what I see him as now at this point. It's, if you take Breece Hall, you trade up for Breece Hall as the Jets did. That's your RB1 from day one. So I see Carter as a handcuff, and that sucks because he did show some really nice flashes last year, I thought. But it's a matter of, how is he going to get much playing time? At least enough to make a fantasy impact. So I think he may end up being one of the, he could be Alexander Madison 2.0 when Alexander Madison was looked at as maybe the top handcuff in the league. Now, does Michael Carter fall into that category where he ends up being at least one of the top handcuffs in the league, a Chuba Hubbard type? That's probably where I see him. Maybe him and Chuba are neck and neck.
Okay. Now, if you were somebody that had Michael Carter in a dynasty format, are you actively shopping him and putting him out there for the Breece Hall owner to try and at least get some value back from him? And if not, is he somebody that you would say is droppable, or what? I guess, where do you sit there on that?
I guess
trying to help out our friends that might have him.
It depends how deep your bench is. If you're in dynasty, hopefully you've got a pretty deep bench. I would assume that's how most dynasty leagues are run.
Yeah.
So I'm not ready to drop him. If I'm an owner, I would see. That's the thing, though. If you try to shop Michael Carter, what are you really going to get in return? Even if you're trying to sell him to a Breece Hall owner, what do you get for a handcuff? I mean, some other random, a random bench guy or a future late pick. What are you really getting out of this? So I probably, unless that Breece Hall owner comes to you and says, I want Michael Carter as my handcuff and I'm willing to give up something halfway decent. And he's not, and that he or she, that owner is a Breece Hall owner is not going to be willing up to give up anything, obviously starter worthy, at least to start off the year. So maybe just see how this year plays out. Or the other thing you can consider, wait until or get close to that trade deadline. Maybe Michael Carter is that number one back for the first 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And as you get closer to that deadline, if you're dealing with fools in your league that are like, oh my God, Michael Carter's putting up great numbers, maybe you'll have a decent, you could have a chance to get a decent return, but I wouldn't do it in the offseason if I'm a current Michael Carter owner. I'm probably just going to hang on to him and see kind of how the cards play out.
Sounds good. All right. Moving on to the New England Patriots. And the question I have for you, Jell, are you in on any Patriots? Because I found myself, I'm avoiding Patriots this year. There isn't anybody that I'm really looking to go after and draft.
My notes for the Patriots are exactly this. Ideally, I have 0 Pats on my team, maybe the single worst team for fantasy in the NFL. Let's be honest. Seriously, if you look at every other team, there's somebody, and Damian Harris is worth, obviously draftable. Ramondre Stevenson, draftable. Hunter Henry, draftable. But do you want any of them on your team? Not me personally. No, I'd be more excited about getting Ramondre Stevenson late than
I think
grabbing Damian Harris.
One. Yeah, if I could get Ramondre later, that would be
that's
the only way I'd go.
Yeah, but I'm not looking to draft any Patriots. Mac Jones, no, I don't want him. Do you see him as? I guess, do you see Mac Jones as a backup option at this point? That's probably his ceiling this season, is a viable bye-week backup.
Yeah. Obviously we're just talking about your standard leagues. This isn't a 2-quarterback league or anything like that, because I think he would make his way onto a 2-quarterback roster. But outside of that, no, he has potential down the road to maybe be fantasy relevant, but his wide receiver options and pass catching options just aren't great and sustainable for him to be putting up QB1 numbers. And let's face it, you've only got, most leagues, 12 teams, maybe 10. You need to have a quarterback 1 to compete with everybody else. And Mac Jones is not it. And I don't see him being it for the foreseeable future either. So until he gets in more guys that are big time threats, then maybe I'd be in on him. Devontae Parker came over this year, but he has never been able to sustained success. Even in Miami, Devontae Parker had 1 year there, but no, Mac Jones I'm not interested in him for redraft or dynasty at this point in time. And he should be somebody then standard leagues that is out there on the waivers.
Streaming at best. Streaming option at best. I'm not drafting him.
No.
Especially also we don't know if the Patriots have an offensive coordinator. They're talking about Matt Patricia possibly being the OC. Like, this sounds like a dumpster fire in the making.
Yeah. And you and I have both said this during the offseason that we see some major regression in the Patriots this year and that they're not going to be as good either. So I'm out on Patriots.
Big time.
All right. Moving over to the last team, the Miami Dolphins, and got a couple wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I'm in on this year. I like both of them. I think you're going to see, you need to temper your expectations with Tyreek. He's not going to be putting up the numbers he did in Kansas City, but I think he'll still be fairly relevant. And again, I do like Jalen Waddle quite a bit too. Had a monster season last year as a rookie. And as far as dislikes, Dolphins running backs, it's a committee. It's a shit show down there.
Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Myles Gaskin. Like, is this going to be a 4 running back by committee kind of a season for him?
I think so. I mean, they gave Chase Edmonds some decent cash. I would expect to see probably more of him, but I'm not comfortable. And I haven't been comfortable with any Miami running backs in a long time for fantasy. And I don't even know Tua, I didn't really put on there either. Not a huge Tua guy going into this year. Tyreek might help him out a little bit where he's got some more streamable weeks. And then Mike Gesicki's kind of burned me in the past too. He's got potential to be up there. They brought him back on the franchise tag, so you'd expect him to be heavily involved in the offense, but he struggled at times last year to find fantasy relevance, and that was without Tyreek Hill there. So I can't get in on Mike Gesicki either.
I guess ultimately, like, I'm going to bring it back to the wide receivers in a sec here, but for Tua, are you higher on Tua than you have to be higher on Tua than Mac Jones?
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
I mean, that's not a question.
And
yes.
So he's a draftable QB2?
Yes. I would say Tua could be rostered as your backup. Absolutely.
Would you feel comfortable in a super flex having him be your second quarterback drafted?
I think so, because I mean, if you're in a 12-team league, that's 24 quarterbacks. So I think he definitely, without a question, falls into that top 24. So I would say he's probably, for me, maybe in the, 14 to 18, 14 to 19 range for quarterbacks, I would think. So he's probably a pretty solid QB2.
I'd say 14's a little high, but I mean, I'm taking Kirk Cousins, for example, over Tua. Let me throw this at you. Tua, Trevor Lawrence for redraft.
Trevor didn't look good at all last year. So Tua was, at least you could have probably put him in a couple weeks and had some sort of relevance, but yeah, I need to see it from Trevor Lawrence. I'm out on him too.
Justin Fields, Matt Ryan, Tua.
Fields, no, not.
I didn't know if the rushing potential would tempt you.
No, I mean it does, but it's gonna be bad this year. Matt Ryan is more interesting. Matt Ryan, man. Yeah, I probably would slot Matt Ryan in front of Tua. They'd probably be pretty close in my rankings, actually, back to back. But that's Michael Pittman there too. But like I said, you got Tyreek Hill there now too. And if Tua can manage to not underthrow him, he should be getting a lot more receiving passing yards this year with Tyreek there as a nice deep threat for him.
So speaking of Tyreek, then, I mean, where do you see him going both in redraft and dynasty? Where would you ideally slot him? I mean, he's been all over Tua's jock all off season, saying that that Tua's more accurate than Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if he's just creating this false narrative, or if he believes what he's saying just to try to pimp up his own quarterback, or what. But he did say that on his own podcast, I guess. Everybody's got a podcast. Make sure to just listen to Dead Arm Sports.
Yeah, right.
It's hashtag exclusive. But, so I guess redraft, I'm taking probably Tyreek over Jalen Waddle, but in Dynasty, where would you slot those two? Tyreek's 28, Jalen's 23, I believe, right now. So where do you slot those guys in terms of, I guess, how would you rank those two in terms of, let's just start Dynasty, because I think that's the easier, or that's the tougher debate would be.
Yeah. I think I would probably lean Jalen Waddle just for the age factor. He had a solid season last year with Tua, so they had built that rapport. So I think I would just lean Jalen Waddle. You're going to get a lot of catches out of him too, where Tyreek is going to be more, I think, transitioning to that kind of that deep threat, kind of that Deshaun Jackson.
Bam, Deshaun.
Yep. So I think it'll kind of be like that. I don't see as big of a drop off because it seemed like in the snap of a finger, Deshaun Jackson was just irrelevant, where I don't think Tyreek is necessarily going to be like that, but I think he's going to be more that deep threat. You're going to see Jalen Waddle is more the possession guy, getting a lot more catches during the game. So I don't know. Jalen Waddle was somebody that we had questions on him going into last season, and he was very solid. If you drafted him, you were happy, and he was very relevant as a rookie wide receiver last year. So I
set a rookie receiving record in terms of total receptions.
Yep. So I like Jalen quite a bit, especially for Dynasty. And I almost would say Jalen Waddle in redraft. He's somebody that, I don't know if you want to transition over to top three guys that we're targeting.
Yeah, let's go.
He's one of mine right now. He's going in the late 4th round. He's a 409 in redraft, and I kind of like it there. That 4th round is one that you're kind of got a crapshoot of guys, but Jalen Waddle is somebody that can put up solid numbers for you. At that point in time, he's more than likely going to be your wide receiver 2 on your team, which I'm very comfortable with him there. Tyreek is, you got the big name with Tyreek. I mean, everybody knows who Tyreek Hill is. He's probably burned you if he's been on your opponent's roster numerous times. So he's somebody,
but he's probably also at the same time burned you if you've had him, because Correct. There's weeks where he'll put up 2 receptions for 16 yards.
Yep. And that was with Patrick Mahomes. So, I mean, right now I don't have the number in front of me where he's potentially going, but I would imagine he's probably going somewhere in that 2nd round, whether it's early, mid, late. And I just don't know if you're going to get the kickback there with his value in the 2nd round. So
I'm seeing right now ADP is exactly where you put it. Very end of the 2nd round, early 1st with Tyreek Hill.
Yep. So I'd rather have Jalen Waddle in the late 4th as opposed to where Tyreek Hill's going. I'd rather grab somebody that I know is going to be up there, and somebody, for example, Stephon Diggs right now is the 205 pick for ADP, and I would much rather have Stephon Diggs on Buffalo's offense, and he's somebody that I would definitely target because he's got potential. What was it 2 years ago? He was the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football, and he's somebody that could potentially do that with Josh Allen there. So he's somebody that you could get that could be a league winner for you in the 2nd round. So Stephon Diggs, no question, I would draft him over Tyreek Hill, and would obviously do that. So that's why I'd rather, I think, have Stephon Diggs, Jalen Waddle where they're going as opposed to Tyreek Hill.
So if you're ranking your top 3 in this division, are you starting off with Diggs, and then who else follows you at 2 and 3, or follows Diggs, or at least in terms of guys you want to target?
Yeah, I would say Diggs. As far as wide receivers go, Diggs. And then you've got I think Waddle, Tyreek Hill battle there. I don't see any of the Jets wide receivers jumping either of those guys that I'd want to target. Elijah Moore maybe in the discussion, but I think I'd still rather have Jalen Waddle.
I'm taking one of those 2 Dolphins.
Yeah. And obviously Patriots aren't even in the discussion. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. I'll just since I've already thrown 2 guys out, I'll give you my last one, and then I'll kick it over to you for your 3 guys. Breece Hall, he's going at beginning of the 6th round right now. So I think that's pretty solid for somebody that potentially could be their starting running back to start off the season. So I like Brees Hall where he's going right now, and somebody that you could get a lot of value for there too.
Yeah.
So he's going to obviously move up once training camp goes and all of that. So that's just kind of right now. Again, we're recording on the 4th of July. Not a lot of redrafts have happened at this point in time. So I expect that number to move up. And I would almost say he's probably, if he is looking like he's going to at least get split carries and potential for taking over that starting role fairly early in the season, you're probably going to see him move up into that 4th round, I bet.
Let me throw a scenario, or just a quick on Brees Hall, him or David Montgomery. Right now, if you were to draft today.
Right now, I would go David Montgomery just because he's going to be the focal point of that offense with how putrid that wide receiver room is. So you're going to get a lot of production from David Montgomery. David Montgomery really doesn't come off of the field a lot either. He's pretty good out of the backfield catching the ball. So I'd go David Montgomery right now.
Antonio Gibson, Brees.
Oh,
that's a lot tougher.
I'd probably go Brees.
I'm thinking the same.
There's too many questions with Antonio Gibson, even health-wise too. He's had issues with health.
All right, well, I'm going to jump into my top 3 guys. I'm going to start off Stephon Diggs. If he's out there, it's guaranteed production. You're not going to have there's no swing and miss potential with Stephon Diggs. You can plug and play wide receiver 1 extremely comfortably. So if Stephon Diggs does or I shouldn't say fall to you, but if the draft works out where you're able to grab Stephon Diggs, I mean, I'm higher on Diggs than I would be Devontae Adams. I'm higher on Diggs than I would be Deebo Samuel, because we don't know what Deebo's role is going to be either this year. Yeah,
I would say Diggs anywhere in the 2nd round. If you're drafting the 2nd round, he's on the board. I'm definitely comfortable grabbing him. If it's the 201 pick, obviously if it's a 212, you're absolutely pumped that he came all the way back to you. Have a nice Jonathan Taylor, Stephon Diggs combo to kick off your draft. That'd be
not too
awesome,
shabby.
But,
yeah. I'm going to start up. Diggs is just, he's the top player in the division by a pretty wide margin. And then, second guy that I'm targeting, we just talked about him, Brees Hall. There's going to be plenty of opportunity out there for him. And then third, this is where I go back to the Miami debate of Waddle, Tyreek. I probably lean Tyreek just for the boom potential, but you're gonna have more guaranteed production with Waddle. So I guess that could be a toss up. The other name you gotta, of course, throw in there is Josh Allen as the number 1 quarterback in the league.
That is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. This was going to be my question of the day for you today before you had the great 4th of July one. And Josh Allen right now, his ADP is at 202. So what is the earliest that you are comfortable taking a quarterback? Because he's obviously somebody I would love to have on my team if he fell into the 3rd round, or if he was there, you're like if you have the 1 overall pick and then he came back where you could pick him in that 212 or something like that, maybe. But I'm one of those, I'm not comfortable at all taking a quarterback in the 2nd round. And even the 3rd round, I have a hard time with. So that's why I was kind of out on him solely for where he's getting drafted.
I guess it depends if you're able to get a stud receiver in rounds 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting there like, okay, I could have the QB1, a very high-end running back, a very high-end wide receiver, and Josh Allen happens to be there at 3 in round 3. I don't love anybody else. That's the only way that I'm willing to take that leap and grab Josh Allen right now. I don't love going quarterback early. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Kirk Cousins. He generally falls a lot and puts up 4,000-yard seasons and ends up being a pretty viable fantasy quarterback every year. And you can get him pretty late. So Matt Stafford too. I mean, at least when he was with the Lions, he would tend to fall because the Lions sucked. But he would still put up good numbers. He was still a very good fantasy quarterback. Not the same now that he's on the Rams, but you know what, you get the premise that I'm getting at. So I mean, he's the easy QB1 for me, but I'm not going to necessarily, I wouldn't put him above being able to grab a second flex or a second, or grab a flex. At that point in round 3, you're not grabbing a flex, obviously, but, grabbing an RB2 or grabbing a wide receiver 2, or if one of those really high end tight ends end up falling to you, maybe that's where you go. But I'm not reaching for a quarterback. There's too many good options out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And usually, I mean, between the top quarterback outside of Lamar's crazy year he had, there really isn't a huge drop off there where if you take a quarterback over a wide receiver running back, you're going to start seeing a huge drop off between production there. So that's why I like going those skill positions early on in the draft. And then I like trying to see what quarterback ends up sliding down a little bit, maybe get some value a little later on in the draft. We'll talk about a quarterback next week that I really like this year in the NFC East, but we'll get into that next week. All right, Jel, can I get a little golf swing from you as we transition over to our golf preview? Nice.
That's me missing the ball.
Nice. We've got the Genesis Scottish Open to preview this week. This is the first time that the PGA Tour and the DP Tour have kind of collaborated for an event. So this is a sanctioned event for both tours. So kind of get a nice cross up this week as some of the American players start going across the Atlantic Ocean, get ready for the Open Championship, spend some time over there. It's at the Renaissance Club in North Berwick. So don't know too much about the course, but nice field, looks star-studded compared to the John Deere from this last week. So I'm excited for that.
Not saying much, but
very, very early morning golf this week. So if you want to watch some of the guys tee off, it'll be maybe when you get home from the bar on a Thursday night, you can tune into some live golf coverage. But that's the only bad part. But who are some of the favorites this week? What do you got for me?
I mean, your top 5, you're looking at John Rahm, staying on that side of the pond as he's a Spaniard at plus 1100, Justin Thomas at plus 1200, Scotty Scheffler also at plus 1200. That's 12-1 odds. Xander Schauffele, Matt Fitzgerald, both at 18 plus 1800, 18-1 odds. I kind of did a little bit of a dive into kind of some of the best bets one of the best bets that I think is out there, and somebody that I'm going to fade. I'll start off on the positive note and go with my best bet for the week, not to win the tournament, but to finish top 10. And I want to go Keegan Bradley. He's played pretty well this season. He's had 6 top 12 finishes this year, tied for 7th at the US Open. Earlier in May, finished 2nd in the Wells Fargo. So, I can't take him to win it because he hasn't proven to me that he can actually finish a tournament and win it, at least anytime this season. But you can get plus money on Keegan Bradley to finish top 10. The other thing that I need to consider is right now it's pegged that there's rain in the forecast for all 4 days. And
not great, Bob.
That's the kind of thing that can really throw off some of the really, really top end players if that forecast ends up correct. So I like Keegan Bradley here as a top 10 finisher. Again, you can get plus money on him. So played pretty well, haven't been able to finish, but top 10 I think is reasonable for him. Golfer I'm going to fade, Scotty Scheffler. I don't like him at plus 1200 here. He's over his last 7 tournaments, he's finished outside the top 10. Obviously started off this season as hot as possible, but last 7 events all outside the top 10. I can't love him here, and at plus 1200, I think you're throwing away your money. I'm fading Scotty this week.
No, I like those a lot. Like you said, every tournament pretty much you've tuned into lately, you see Keegan Bradley there on Sunday, and he's kind of come on strong last little bit, playing some great golf. And like you said, though, the rain in the forecast, it kind of levels the playing field. And obviously most of the tournaments you go and see across the pond, winds are usually pretty high too. So that also makes for some exciting and eventful golf down the stretch. But Well, that's pretty much all I had. We can jump into our picks here. So, if you're new to the show, every week, starting with the Century Tournament of Champions, Jell and I pick a golfer, whatever their score is relative to par. That's a score you get for the week, keeping a running total there. If your golfer misses the cut, like mine did last week, you just get whatever the score is for that. And once you pick a golfer, can't use them again and can't use the same golfer as your opponent. So, Jell, do you know who picks first this week?
Well, I am up by an estimated 52 strokes on you for the season. So
all right. I'm looking to get that all back this week.
I'll be a gentleman and give this hand the reins over to you, buddy.
All right. Somebody I'm going to go with this week. He's been playing some fairly good golf, almost won a major tournament, or at least forced a playoff a couple of weeks back. Somebody you really like, Jell, and that's Mr. Will Zalatoris. So I'm gonna go with Big Willie this week in hopes that can at least crack the top 5, and hopefully your guy has a little trouble. And so I'm gonna lock in Will Zalatoris. And again, we are recording on a Monday, so if either of our golfers withdraws before the event starts, usually Jell and I will text each other and then we'll update you next week, like I had to do with Steve Stricker. But right now, recording Monday, Will Zalatoris is locked in. So
I love Zalatoris this year. I'd pick him almost every week if I could, at least in some of these bigger tournaments. He's depending on what book you're looking at. Some books have him at plus 2,500 to win. Some have him at plus 3,000. So you could get some pretty good odds on Zalatoris. Again, he is still searching for his first ever PGA Tour victory, but it's just bound to happen at some point. So I would not be shocked. I favorite golfer on tour, personal favorite golfer on tour right now, Willie Z. But I'm gonna go with the tournament favorite here, Jon Rahm. Rama Lama Ding Dong.
Rama Lama Ding Dong.
He's the favorite. I've been kind of figuring out when do I want to use him. He's been he's been the favorite in just about every tournament, almost every tournament, outside of a few weeks when Scotty and JT have really been in command of, or have been atop of the, on top of the favorites. But Rahm is, he's a Spaniard. He's familiar with that side of the pond, and this is his first tournament since the U.S. Open, where he ended up finishing tied for 12th. He had a really, really, really good Thursday, Friday, where he went into Saturday atop the leaderboard, ended up going even on Saturday and 3 over on Sunday. So he didn't end up finishing well, but he is at least, his last couple tournaments, the weekend or his tournament before, he had a top 10 finish. So I like a little bit of that momentum for Jon Rahm, and not going back. He's not going back to obviously his home course, but at least on that side of the Atlantic Ocean. So I like him here, and I'm ready to finally take
Ramalama Ding Dong.
Ramalama Ding Dong. And also, again, it's a preview for the British Open, which I think he's gonna end up doing well in. So he's got to be dialed in right now.
Yeah, no, I like Jon Rahm a lot this week too. So I think that's a great pick. He's somebody I was looking at, but I had already picked him, believe, earlier on. So I ended up locking in a little Willie Z action. So special shout out. Apologize to the listeners out there if you can hear the thunder in my background, and if you can still hear fireworks. Yes, there is a dumbass out there lighting fireworks in a thunderstorm. So shout out to you, buddy.
It's great. Hey, live or die for the cause,
I guess. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell on YouTube. You'll know when we drop our live shows, and that way you can jump on, ask us any questions. Again, like your teachers would say in grade school, no question's a dumb question. So we will take any and all questions that you have, write them in on our DMs to us on any of our socials, or at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Send us a message. Jell can be found at DAS Jell. I can be found at DAS JPEG. hit us up on there. We'll hit you back with our answer, or else we will answer it on the next podcast. And make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on all of our listening platforms. That way, you know when our episodes drop. You can listen to them, interact with us. Let us know if you liked a segment we did, any other suggestions or ideas that you want for us. Again, Joel and I love talking sports, and this podcast is for our listeners. You're what makes a podcast go. So we want to make sure we're talking about things that you want us to talk about or want to hear more about. So make sure you are interacting with us and let us know what you want to talk about. And Jel, where can they listen to us at?
Hit us up on our presenting sponsor, Anchor, on both available online on a website just by searching anchor.fm, or available on your Apple Pod or Apple store, whatever it's
Words
called.
are hard.
Yeah, doing well. Or Google's Google Play Store. Hopefully. Woof. Great job. And make sure to subscribe, rate, review, whatever your chosen listening platform is. Anchor allows us to present this to you for free. Again, that could be on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Make sure to hit us up on our YouTube channel. Just search Dead Arm Sports on that YouTube search bar. Our channel should be the first thing that pops up at the very top of your page. Hit subscribe, and also make sure you hit that bell to get your alerts.
Ding. Ding.
There we go. Take it away. Shit show of a finale.
Yes. Appreciate everybody out there listening. Hopefully you found this last segment very entertaining and us struggling through our social plugs. But nonetheless, we'll be back with you next week. Again, this was the first of our 8 division fantasy preview. So we will be moving to the NFC East next week, talking about the Manders and the Cowboys and Eagles. Giants, maybe. We'll see if we get there. See if we have anything nice to say about the Giants next week. You'll have to tune in to find out.
Be rare. Rare occurrence.
Yes. But again, appreciate everybody out there listening. Make sure you subscribe on our platforms. We will be going live on Monday, so that way we can have you jump on. And you know what? Whoever is out there jumps on and asks us a question on our page, send us a DM afterwards with your address. We'll get you some stickers sent out. So that is a shout out to whoever asked the first question. You will get some sticker action next week. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page, you know, when we go live, and be the first one to ask us a question. Joe, close us out.
AFC East, more like AFC least.
Ooh.